Welcome, dear souls. This is the second gathering of Deep Book Club, and we are reading The Alchemist. We ended at the last gathering on page 23, and it is just me here today, so I will be the one reading it and then just contemplating afterwards with some thoughts that come up. I'm in a little pain today with my neck, so bear with me if you see a grimace or cringe. I sat with it this morning, deciding or discerning whether coming and doing the book gathering today would be useful or supportive of me where I am, because I took a spill yesterday hiking. It needed some definite pain in my neck and my upper back. And I'm gonna see my magical massage therapist today, Amy. I'm hoping that'll clear it up. As I was sitting there discerning and whether showing up today for the book club would be supportive of me now. And every time I thought of sitting here and just getting lost in a book and reading, it filled me with so much light and love and bliss. And I was like, okay, light, love, and bliss is the exact medicine that my body, and my heart, and my soul, and my mind need to support in my body's healing. And soul's healing, mind's healing, all of it. And it's all intertwined. And the last few days have been well, not even a few days, but specifically yesterday was a super deep and intense experience, just experiencing what I did on the hike. And the afterwards, there was fasting. So anyway, that's not about me. And just bear with me if you see any grimacing. And this is absolutely in the most supportive feel or supportive path for me. So yeah. Okay. So again, The Alchemist. We ended at the last gathering on page 22. So that is where we shall begin. I am the king of Salem, the old man had said. Why would a king be talking with a shepherd? The boy asked, awed and embarrassed. For several reasons, but let's say that the most important is that you have succeeded in discovering your personal legend. The boy didn't know what a person's personal legend was. It's what you have always wanted to accomplish. Everyone, when they are young, knows what their personal legend is. At that point in their lives, everything is clear and everything is possible. They are not afraid to dream and to yearn for everything they would like to see happen to them in their lives. But as time passes, a mysterious force begins to convince them that it will be impossible for them to realize their personal legend. None of what the old man was saying made much sense to the boy, but he wanted to know what the mysterious force was. The merchant's daughter would be impressed when he told her about that. It's a force that appears to be negative, but actually shows you how to realize your personal legend. It prepares your spirit and your will, because there is one great truth on this planet. Whoever you are, or whatever it is that you do, when you really want something, it's because that desire originated in the soul of the universe. It's your mission on Earth. Even when all you want to do is travel and marry the daughter of a textile merchant, yes, or even search for treasure. The soul of the world is nourished by people's happiness and also by unhappiness, envy, and jealousy. To realize one's personal legends is a person's only real obligation. All things are one. And when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. They were both silent for a time, observing the plaza and the townspeople. It was the old man who spoke first. Why do you tend a flock of sheep? Because I like to travel. The old man pointed to a baker standing in his shop window to one corner of the plaza. When he was a child, that man wanted to travel too. But he decided first to buy his bakery and put some money aside. When he's an old man, he's going to spend a month in Africa. He never realized that people are capable at any time in their lives of doing what they dream of. He should have decided to become a shepherd, the boy said. Well, he thought about that, the old man said, but bakers are more important people than shepherds. Bakers have homes, while shepherds sleep out in the open. Parents would rather see their children marry bakers than shepherds. The boy felt a pain in his heart, thinking about the merchant's daughter. There was surely a baker in town. The old man continued, in the long run, what people think about shepherds and bakers becomes more important for them than their own personal legends. The old man leafed through the book and fell to reading a page he came to. The boy waited and then interrupted the old man just as he himself had been interrupted. Why are you telling me this? Because you are trying to realize your personal legend. And you are at the point where you're about to give it all up. And that's when you always appear on the scene. Not always in this way, but I always appear in one form or another. Sometimes I appear in the form of a solution or a good idea. At other times, at a crucial moment, I make it easier for things to happen. There are other things I do too, but most of the time people don't realize I've done them. The old man related that the week before he had been forced to appear before a miner and had taken the form of a stone. The miner had abandoned everything to go mining for emeralds. For 5 years, he had been working a certain river and had examined hundreds of thousands of stones looking for an emerald. The miner was about to give it all up, right at the point when, if he were to examine just one more stone, just one more, he would find his emerald. Since the miner had sacrificed everything to his personal legends, the old man decided to become involved. He transformed himself into a stone that rolled up to the miner's foot. The miner, with all the anger and frustration of his 5 fruitless years, picked up the stone and threw it aside. But he had thrown it with such force that it broke the stone. It fell open. And there, embedded in the broken stone, was the most beautiful emerald in the world. People learn early in their lives what is their reason for being. And it said the old man, with a certain bitterness. Maybe that's why they give up on it so early too. But that's the way it is. The boy reminded the old man that he had said something about hidden treasure. Treasure is uncovered by the force of flowing water, and it is buried by the same currents, said the old man. If you want to learn about your own treasure, you will have to give me 1/10 of your flock. The old man, oh, what about 1/10 of my treasure? The old man looked disappointed. You start out by promising what you don't even have yet. You'll lose your desire to work toward getting it. The boy told him that he had already promised to give 1/10 of the treasure to the gypsy. Gypsies are experts at getting people to do that, sighed the old man. In any case, It's good that you've learned that everything in life has its price. This is what the warriors of light try to teach. The old man returned the book to the boy. Tomorrow, at the same time, bring me a tenth of your flock, and I will tell you how to find the hidden treasure. Good afternoon. And he vanished around the corner of the plaza. The boy began again to read his book, but he was no longer able to concentrate. He was tense and upset because he knew that the old man was right. He went over to the baker and bought a loaf of bread, thinking that whether or not he should tell the baker what the old man had said about him. Sometimes it's better to leave things as they are. He thought to himself and decided to say nothing. If he were to say anything, the baker would spend 3 days thinking about giving it all up, even though he had gotten used to the way things were. The boy could certainly resist causing that kind of anxiety for the baker. So he began to wander through the city and found himself at the gates. There was a small building there with a window at which people bought tickets to Africa. And he knew that Egypt was in Africa. Can I help you? Asked the man behind the window. Maybe tomorrow, said the boy, moving away. He sold just one of his sheep. He'd have enough to get to the other shore of the strait. The idea frightened him. Another dreamer, said the ticket seller to his assistant, watching the boy walk away. He doesn't have enough money to travel. While standing at the ticket window, the boy had remembered his flock and decided he should go back to being a shepherd. In 2 years, he had learned everything about shepherding. He knew how to shear sheep, how to care for pregnant ewes, and how to protect the sheep from wolves. He knew all the fields and pastures of Andalusia, and he knew what was the fair price for every one of his animals. He decided to return to his friend's stable by the longest route possible. As he walked past the city's castle, he interrupted his return and climbed the stone ramp that led to the top of the wall. From there, he could see Africa in the distance. Someone had once told him that it was from there that the Moors had come to occupy all of Spain. He could see almost the entire city from where he sat, including the plaza where he had talked with the old man. Curse the moment I met that old man, he thought. He had come to the town only to find a woman who could interpret his dream. Neither the woman nor the old man was at all impressed by the fact that he was a shepherd. They were solitary individuals who no longer believed in things and didn't understand that shepherds become attached to their sheep. He knew everything about each member of his flock. He knew which ones were lame. He knew which one was to give birth 2 months from now and which were the laziest. He knew how to shear them and how to slaughter them. If he ever decided to leave them, they would suffer. The wind began to pick up. He knew that wind. People called it the Levanter because on it, the Moors had come from the Levant at the eastern end of the Mediterranean. The Levanter increased in intensity. Here I am between my flock and my treasure, the boy thought. He had to choose between something he had become accustomed to and something he wanted to have. There was also the merchant's daughter, but she wasn't as important as his flock because she didn't depend on him. Maybe she didn't even remember. He was sure that it made no difference to her on which day he appeared. For her, every day was the same. And when each day is the same as the next, oh, excuse me. It's because people fail to recognize the good things that happen in their lives every day that the sun rises. I left my father, my mother, and the town castle behind. They have gotten used to my being away, and so have I. The sheep will get used to my not being there too, the boy thought. From where he sat, he could observe the plaza. People continued to come and go from the baker's shop. A young couple sat on the bench where he had talked with the old man and they kissed. That baker, he said to himself without completing the thought. The levanter was still getting stronger, and he felt its force on his face. That wind had brought the morns, yes, but it had also brought the smell of the desert and the veiled wind. It had brought with it the sweat and the dreams of men who had once left to search for the unknown, and for golden adventure, and for the pyramids. The boy felt jealous of the freedom of the wind and saw that he could have the same freedom. There was nothing to hold him back except himself. The sheep, the merchant's daughter, and the fields of Andalusia were only steps along the way to his personal legend. The next day, the boy met the old man at noon. He brought 6 sheep with him. I'm surprised, the boy said. My friend brought all the other sheep immediately. He said that he had always dreamed of being a shepherd and that it was a good omen. That's the way it always is, said the man. It's called the principle of favorability. When you play cards the first time, you're almost sure to win. Beginner's luck. Why is that? Because there is a force that wants you to realize your personal legend. It whets your appetite with the taste of success. Then the old man began to inspect the sheep. He saw that one was lame. The boy explained that it wasn't important, since that sheep was the most intelligent of the flock and produced the most wool. Where's the treasure? He asked. It's in Egypt, near the pyramids. The boy was startled. The old woman had said the same thing, but she hadn't charged him anything. In order to find the treasure, you will have to follow the omens. God has prepared a path for everyone to follow. You just have to read the omens that he left for you. Before the boy could reply, a butterfly appeared and fluttered between him and the old man. He remembered something his grandfather had once told him, that butterflies were a good omen. Like crickets and like grasshoppers, like lizards and 4-leaf clovers. That's right, said the old man, able to read the boy's thoughts. Just as your grandfather taught you, these are good omens. The old man opened his cape, and the boy was struck by what he saw. The old man wore a breastplate of heavy gold covered with precious stones. The boy recalled the brilliance he had noticed on the previous day. He really was a king. He must be disguised to avoid encounters with thieves. Take these, said the old man, handing out a white stone and a black stone that had been embedded at the center of his breastplate. They are called Urim and Thummim. The black signifies yes, and the white, no. When you are unable to read the omens, they will help you to do so. Always ask an objective question. But if you can, try to make your own decision. The treasure is at the pyramids. That you already knew. But I had to insist on the payment of 6 sheep because I helped you to make your decision. The boy put the stones in his pouch. From then on, he would make his own decisions. Don't forget that everything you deal with is only one thing and nothing else. And don't forget the language of omens. And above all, don't forget to follow your personal legend through to its conclusion. But before I go, I want to tell you a little story. A certain shopkeeper sent his son to learn about the secret of happiness from the wisest man in the world. The lad wandered through the desert for 40 days and finally came upon a beautiful castle high atop a mountain. It was there that the wise man lived. Rather than finding a saintly man, though our hero, on entering the main room of the castle, saw a hive of activity. Tradesmen came and went, people were conversing in the corners, a small orchestra was playing soft music, and there was a table covered with platters of the most delicious food in that part of the world. The wise man conversed with everyone, and the boy had to wait for 2 hours before it was his turn to be given the man's attention. The wise man listened attentively to the boy's explanation of why he had come, but told him that he didn't have time just then to explain the secret of happiness. He suggested that the boy look around the palace and return in 2 hours. Meanwhile, I want to ask you to do something, said the wise man, handing the boy a teaspoon that held 2 drops of oil. As you wander around, carry the spoon with you without allowing the oil to spill. The boy began climbing and descending the many stairways of the palace, keeping his eyes fixed on the spoon. After 2 hours, he returned to the room where the wise man was. Well, asked the wise man, did you see the Persian tapestry that are hanging in my dining hall? Did you see the garden that it took the master gardener 10 years to create? Did you notice the beautiful parchments in the library? The boy was embarrassed and confessed that he had observed nothing. His only concern had been not to spill the oil that the wise man had entrusted to him. Then go back and observe the marvels of my world, said the wise man. You cannot trust a man if you don't know his house. Relieved, the boy picked up the spoon and returned to his exploration of the place of the palace, this time observing all of the works of art on the ceilings and the walls. He saw the gardens, the mountains all around him, the beauty of the flowers, and the taste with which everything had been selected. Upon returning to the wise man, he related in detail everything he had seen. But where are the drops of oil I entrusted to me? Asked the old wise man. Looking down at the spoon he held, the boy saw that the oil was gone. Well, there is only one piece of advice I can give you, said the wisest of wise men. The secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never to forget the drops of oil on the spoon. The shepherd said nothing. He had understood the story the old king told him. A shepherd may like to travel, but he should never forget about his sheep. The old man looked at the boy and, with his hands held together, made several strange gestures over the boy's head. Then, taking his sheep, he walked away. At the highest point in Tarifa, there is an old fort built by the Moors. From atop its walls, one can catch a glimpse of Africa. Melchizedek, the king of Salem, sat on the wall of the fort that afternoon and felt the levanter blowing in his face. The sheep fidgeted nearby, uneasy with their new owner and excited by so much change. All they wanted was food and water. Melchizedek watched a small ship that was plowing its way out of the port. He would never again see the boy, just as he had never seen Abraham again after having charged him his 1/10 fee. And that was his work. The gods should not have desires, because they don't have personal legends. But the king of Salem hoped desperately that the boy would be successful. It's too bad that he's quickly going to forget my name, he thought. I should have repeated it for him. Then when he spoke about me, he would say that I am Melchizedek, the king of Salem. He looked to the skies, feeling a bit abashed, and said, I know it's the vanity of vanities, as you said, my lord. But an old king sometimes has to take some pride in himself. How strange Africa is, thought the boy. He was sitting in a bar very much like the other bars he had seen along the narrow streets of Tangier. Some men were smoking from a gigantic pipe that they passed from one to the other. In just a few hours, he had seen men walking hand in hand, women with their faces covered in priests that climbed to the tops of towers and chanted. As everyone about him went to their knees and placed their foreheads on the ground. A practice of infidels, he said to himself. As a child in church, he had always looked at the image of Saint Santiago Matamoros on his white horse, his sword unsheathed, and figures such as these kneeling at his feet. The boy felt ill and terribly alone. The infidels had an evil look about them. Besides this, in the rush of his travels, he had forgotten a detail, just one detail, which could keep him away from his treasure for a long time. Only Arabic was spoken in this country. The owner of the bar approached him, and the boy pointed to a drink that he had been served at the next table. It turned out to be a bitter tea. The boy preferred wine, but he didn't need to worry about that right now. What he had to be concerned about was his treasure and how he was going to go about getting it. The sale of his sheep had left him with enough money in his pouch, and the boy knew that in money there was magic. Whoever has money is never really alone. Before long, maybe in just a few days, he would be at the pyramids. An old man with a breastplate of gold wouldn't have lied just to acquire 6 sheep. The old man had spoken about signs and omens, and as the boy was crossing the street, he had thought about them. Yes, the old man had known what he was talking about. During the time the boy had spent in the fields of Andalusia, he had become used to learning which path he should take by observing the ground and the sky. He had discovered that the presence of a certain bird meant that a snake was nearby, and that a certain shrub was a sign that there was water in the area. The sheep had taught him. If God leads the sheep so well, he will also lead a man, he thought. And that made him feel better. The tea seemed less bitter. Who are you? He heard a voice ask him in Spanish. The boy was relieved. He was thinking about omens and someone had appeared. How can you speak Spanish? He asked. The new arrival was a young man in Western dress, but the color of his skin suggested he was from this city. Oh, he was about the same age and height as the boy. Almost everyone here speaks Spanish. We're only 2 hours from Spain. Sit down and let me treat you to something, said the boy, and ask for a glass of wine for me. I hate this tea. There's no wine in this country, the young man said. The religion here forbids it. The boy told him then that he needed to get to the pyramids. He almost began to tell about his treasure, but decided not to do so. If he did, it was possible that the Arab would want a part of it as payment for taking him there. He remembered what the old man said about offering something you didn't even have yet. I'd like you to take me there if I can. I can pay you to serve as my guide. Do you have any idea how to get there? The newcomer asked. The boy noticed that the owner of the bar stood nearby, listening attentively to their conversation. He felt uneasy at the men's presence, but he had found a guide and didn't want to miss out on an opportunity. You have to cross the entire Sahara Desert, said the young man. And to do that, you need money. I need to know whether you have enough. The boy thought it was a strange question, but he trusted in the old man, who had said that when you really want something, the universe always conspires in your favor. He took his money from the pouch and showed it to the young man. The owner of the bar came over and looked as well. The 2 men exchanged some words in Arabic, and the bar owner seemed irritated. Let's get out of here, said the new arrival. He wants us to leave. The boy was relieved. He got up to pay the bill, but the owner grabbed him and began to speak to him in an angry stream of words. The boy was strong and wanted to retaliate, but he was in a foreign country. His new friend pushed the owner aside and pulled the boy outside with him. He wanted your money, he said. Tangier is not like the rest of Africa. This is a port, and every port has its thieves. The boy trusted his new friends. He had helped him out in a dangerous situation. He took out his money and counted it. We could get to the pyramids by tomorrow, said the other, taking the money, but I have to buy 2 camels. They walked together through the narrow streets of Tangier. Everywhere there were stalls with items for sale. They reached the center of a large plaza where the market was held. There were thousands of people there arguing, selling, and buying vegetables for sale amongst staggers and carpets displayed alongside tobacco. But the boy never took his eye off his new friend. After all, he had all of his money. He thought about asking him to give it back, but decided that would be unfriendly. He knew nothing about the customs of the strange land he was in. I'll just watch him, he said to himself. He knew he was stronger than his friend. Suddenly, there, in the midst of all that confusion, he saw the most beautiful sword he had ever seen. The scabbard was embossed in silver, and the handle was black and encrusted with precious stones. The boy promised himself that when he returned from Egypt, he would buy that sword. Ask the owner of that stall how much the sword costs, he said to his friend. Then he realized that he had been distracted for a few moments, looking at the sword. His heart squeezed as if his chest had suddenly compressed it. He was afraid to look around because he knew that what he would find. He continued to look at that beautiful sword for a bit longer until he summoned the courage to turn around. All around him was the market, with people coming and going, shouting and buying in the aroma of strange foods, but nowhere could he find his new companion. The boy wanted to believe that his friend had simply become separated from him by accident. He decided to stay right there and await his return. As he waited, a priest climbed to the top of the nearby tower and began his chants. Everyone in the market fell to their knees, touched their forehead to the ground, and took up the chant. Then, like a colony of worker ants, they dismantled their stalls and the sun began its departure as well. The boy watched it through its trajectory for some time, until it was hidden behind the white houses surrounding the plaza. He recalled that when the sun had risen that morning, he was on another continent, still a shepherd with 60 sheep, and looking forward to meeting with a girl. That morning, he had known everything that was going to happen to him as he walked through the familiar fields. But now, as the sun began to set, he was in a different country, a stranger in a strange land where he couldn't even speak the language. He was no longer a shepherd, and he had nothing, not even the money to return and start everything over. All this happened between sunrise and sunset. The boy thought. He was feeling sorry for himself and lamenting the fact that his life could have changed so suddenly, so drastically. He was so ashamed that he wanted to cry. He had never even wept in front of his own sheep. But the marketplace was empty and he was far from home, so he wept. He wept because God was unfair and because this was the way God repaid those who believed in their dreams. When I had my sheep, I was happy, and I made those around me happy. People saw me coming and welcomed me, he thought, but now I'm sad and alone. I'm going to become bitter and distrustful of people because one person betrayed me. I'm going to hate those who have found their treasure because I have never found mine. And I'm going to hold on to what little I have because I'm too insignificant to conquer the world. He opened his pouch to see what was left of his possession. Maybe there was a bit left of the sandwich he had eaten in the shop, but all he found was the heavy book, his jacket, and the 2 stones the old man had given him. As he looked at the stones, he felt relieved for some reason. He had exchanged 6 sheep for 2 precious stones that had been taken from a gold breastplate. He could sell the stones and buy a return ticket. But this time I'll be smarter, he said, removing them from the pouch so he could put them in his pocket. There was a port town, and the only truthful thing his friend had told him was that port towns are full of thieves. Now he understood why the owner of the bar had been so upset. He was trying to tell him not to trust the man. I'm like everyone else. I see the world in terms of what I would like to see happen, not what actually does. He ran his fingers slowly over the stones, sensing their temperature and feeling their surfaces. They were his treasure. Just handling them made him feel better. They reminded him of the old man. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it, he said. Boy was trying to understand the truth of what the old man said. There he was in the empty marketplace, without a cent to his name, and with not a sheep to guard through the night. But the stones were proof that he had met with a king who knew of the boy's past. They're called Urim and Thummim, and they can help you to read the omens. The boy put the stones back in the pouch and decided to do an experiment. The old man had said to ask a very clear question, and to do that, the boy had to know what he wanted. So he asked if the old man's blessing was still with him. He took out one of the stones. It was a yes. Am I going to find my treasure? He stuck his hand into the pouch and felt around for one of the stones. As he did so, both of them pushed through the hole in the pouch and fell to the ground. The boy had never even noticed that there was a hole in his pouch. He knelt down to find Urim and Thummim and put them back in the pouch. But as he saw them lying there on the ground, another phrase came to his mind. Learn to recognize omens and follow them, the old king had said. An omen, the boy smiled to himself. He picked up the two stones and put them back in his pouch. He didn't consider mending the hole. The stones could fall through any time they wanted. He had learned that there were certain things one shouldn't ask about, so as not to flee from one's own personal legend. I promised that I would make my own decision, he said to himself. But the stones had told him that the old man was still with him, and that made him feel more confident. He looked around at the empty closet again, feeling less desperate than before. This was a strange place. It was a new one. After all, what he had always wanted was just that, to know new places. Even if he never got to the pyramid, he had already traveled farther than any shepherd he knew. Oh, if they only knew how different things are. Just 2 hours by ship from where they are, he thought, although his new world at the moment was just an empty marketplace. He had already seen it when it was teeming with life, and he would never forget it. He remembered the sword. It hurt him a bit to think about it, but he had never seen one like it before. As he mused about these things, he realized that he had to choose between thinking of himself as the poor victim of a thief and as an adventurer made quest of his treasure. I'm an adventurer looking for treasure, he said to himself. And there we will stop reading from this session. And what a beautiful place to end. The fork in the road that we all come to multiple times in our life. Am I a poor victim, or am I an adventurer? Because life is going to happen. We are going to slip and fall. I think it's such a beautiful space to end in a little reflection on yesterday for me. You know, and the lesson that the beautiful bee showed me as well. So just to share for any of those who didn't read my post about it, I went on a beautiful hike yesterday morning, woke up a bit early and did some yoga, did some meditation. I wanted to go hiking. My body was like craving me outside and movement, and so I went hiking yesterday morning again. And I went up to the top of the mountain and I wrote my morning journal. And on the way down, I just, was thinking about a lot of different things. My mind's been very full lately. And I was actually thinking about like how slippery it is. And I was wearing my sandal hiking shoes. And like just honestly admiring and being impressed because I can be, and this is a claim that I am not, but I had previously had claimed myself to be a very clumsy hiker. And the last couple of days when I had reached that mountain, I had been tripping and stumbling and slipping, and I hadn't fallen enough. So I was thinking, this like, I've only ever fallen once on this mountain. Maybe I'm not necessarily that clumsy hiker, but I think I am. Trips and slips and stumbles. That's part of being out in nature and exploring and being an adventure. And surely enough, like as I was saying, when I slipped and I fell on my butt, and it was it was so funny because I slipped and fell. My legs were like this, and like I caught myself on my hands. But as I fell, I felt my neck just tighten, and I don't know if that strained, but it was like, oh, and it's shapes, and bruises and stuff. But I got up, and it wasn't like that wasn't scary. It was almost it was funny. And so I'm walking, and then all of a sudden, a bee takes up residence in my hair, and it's so funny because I'm just saying, like, bees are scary to me. Like, the idea of getting stung was so scary to me. Just last weekend, we were paddleboarding, and a bee was flying around and like landed on me and was on my paddleboard. And so I like just immediately jumped into the water, and the bee got away. Just fine, but there's just so much like, wow, panic and scared and fear. And at first, before I jumped in the water, I was like, hitting with my paddle. Anyway, and so of course again, the bee's wisdom didn't sink into me. I didn't receive it. So the bee came back and taught me the wisdom. And so I had just fallen, and I'm walking, and literally just a couple of minutes later, the bee comes into my hair, and I'm like, whacking it, trying to get it out, and shaking my head, and like running. And if I run, it'll go away, but it keeps coming back and wants to get in my hair, and it's flying all over my face. And then my earbud flies out, and so I turn around and run back. I'm still shaking my head, still hitting my hair, and running, tickling my earbud, and then finally it just stings me right there in the face. And then it's done. And it's like, it didn't, I mean, it stung a little bit, and I could feel, the sting kind of spread throughout my face, but you didn't see anything. It was right here. I can feel a little bump, and it's a little sore. But like the sting itself didn't even really hurt. And I created so much chaos and franticness, and the fear was just so great. And then to like step back and see how I was acting, and to see how I didn't care about anything other than wanting to get that feel. I wasn't concerned that I was running and I could have slipped and fallen again because it was still slick and steep. I wasn't concerned. I was hurting my neck even more by shaking my head so much. And, I wasn't concerned about my safety, even though I thought I was. The fear made me think I was. But in that moment, I decided I was a victim instead of an adventurer. And so being able to see in such dramatic flair what my fear creates, what I create when I'm choosing from fear. When I allow fear to take over. When I choose to believe myself to be a victim as opposed to an adventurer. And so I'm super curious to see how that integrates and to see how that comes into my life. And then the other part, there are so many parts, and I love this book so much. The beginning part, where the king talks about our personal legends, and as a child, our personal legends is so clear, and we see it and we believe in it so much. But as we grow, something gets in the way and allows us to give up on our personal legend, our purpose. And honestly, like, I so needed to hear that because in physical pain is quite the illuminator to insecurity and wounds that are still here, right? And so I'm in a lot of physical pain. I kept waking up last night in pain. So I didn't sleep very well until the yawning. And so my personal legends, my training, creating this community of creating medicine centers all over the world, creating a podcast to share stories and practices and messages. You're not alone. The sacred wilds, just the sacred wilds in general, all of its different expressions that will take place to create a place for people to be, to create a place for people to show up exactly as they are, and to be reminded that that's perfect. It's more than perfect. It's medicine. And I do my personal legends, purpose of this world. And it's not easy. There are days like this morning where I lay on my couch, just watching TV, and I think to myself, this is saving the world. Coming to the book club, and it's just me. Like, there's that piece of my brain. It's like some point continuing, and there's no results is insanity. And that kind of message comes to my brain many different ways. I can go on forever at the many different versions of that message that comes to my mind throughout this whole journey. Throughout this whole journey. From the moment 5 years ago, after I had been seeing my first coach for a few months, and I remember it so vividly. And driving down Carefree Highway to go pick up my kids from school, and the realization came to me: I want to be of service. Like, that's what I meant to be in this world. I had no idea how the hell I'm going to be of service. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know any of that. I just knew deep in my soul that I wanted to be of service. And the time I was a single mom that just realized she never knew how to love. I knew that I wanted to be of service. Fast forward 5 years from now, we're here. And 5 years ago, that desire, the passion to be of service, or flickers amidst the darkness that was my life in that time frame. And now, the doubt is what flickers. And the light and love and passion that is in life And it would be easy to give up. It would be comfortable. I wouldn't I wouldn't be in debt because all the money that I spend on the sacred wilds would go to pay that off. Super easy. I wouldn't have this like pull of, feeling like a bad mom because I'm not spending enough time with my kids because I'm holding ceremonies or I'm going to be doing this podcast or I'm seeing clients or I'm, on these calls or, whatever number of things I'm in business meetings or anything like that outside of my regular 9 to 5 because I'm a single mom. Gotta pay the bills. But my life would be empty. I wouldn't be living in my purpose. I wouldn't be living in alignment with my core values and with the practices that I have lived by to get here, to understand what it is to be embodied, to truly understand what it is to have your desires be aligned with your thoughts, and those thoughts be aligned with your words, and your words be aligned with your actions, and your actions be aligned with your truth. To not have to worry about getting my story straight because I'm not telling a story. I'm just speaking from my heart. I'm speaking my truth. And that truth may look different tomorrow than it does today. I may use different words. I may do different things. But the truth is that I am love. And my mission is to stand so firm and with every word and every action. It reminds you that you are that too. And that's what all this is for. And I'm not willing to give that up. I'm not willing to get lost in the numbers and the shoulds and the have tos. Give that up. So I guess my invitation, my ask, is to ask yourself, what is your personal legend? What is your purpose in this life? What is your mission in this life? And have you forgotten? Have you given up? It's never too late to not give up. Ever. Now let's close for this book club gathering. I'm so glad to have everybody that is watching this join in. And I really look forward to next week. I love all of you. That's all.